All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is a topic that, I really like to talk about a lot. So today, if I kind of ramble on, just reel me back in. If I get too excited, and starting to do cartwheels inside here, just kind of, slow me down a bit. But artificial intelligence has been one of those topics recently, and I would probably say, probably in the last, 5 to 10 years, right, it has bubbled up to the surface. Now, artificial intelligence has been around for quite some time, and we'll learn about some of that today. What I will be doing today as well is, pardon my use of my notes here, because I have a lot I want to get through. And what I'll do is, from time to time, kind of reference my notes as I go through. So let's talk about artificial intelligence itself. And today we're going to go through, what the origins of artificial intelligence is. We'll look at the impact of generative AI. We'll also talk about what generative AI is, okay? And we'll look at some of those strategies we can use to exploit it or innovate with artificial intelligence. So here's what I want you to think about, right? Think about artificial intelligence as you teaching your computer to do some things, okay? You teaching your computer, to do some things similar to how you would teach anyone doing something, right? Imagine you have a newborn baby, right? Child is growing up. Child knows nothing, right? So what we'll have to do is start to teach them, things, right? How to recognize, a few things. So from the get-go, one of the things I'm going to do is I need 2 volunteers, real quick. Any 2, one from this side of the room. Oh, I like it. And one from this side of the room. Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. So on those boards over there, we're going to have some whiteboards. So just grab a dry erase marker, right? Grab a dry erase marker over here. And what we will do is on this side of the room, right, you will give your team captain, I'm going to call him a team captain, you will give your team captain all the attributes you can think about that is a dog, okay? Okay, and on this side, we're going to do the same thing, right? We're going to have to speak up though, right? And we're going to give your team captain all the attributes you can think of that is a dog, right? So let's start.
Loyal.
Harry over there.
Loyal.
Loyal. Oh, okay. I like that attribute. Okay. Lovable. Okay. This is going to be interesting. I like it. I like where this is going, but it's going to be loyal. Housebroken. Protective. Companion. Do we need a, you know what? We can't see this, right? We need a better dry erase. Let me get you a better one here. Let's switch it up a bit. No, this one's no good. Oh, that one looks a little bit better. Yes, I like it. There you go. Companion.
Guard. Sometimes. Most times.
We should have a librarian up
Yeah.
No, that's not a requirement. So you can spell it any way you want it.
Wet nose.
Wet nose. What about loud? Loud. Yeah. Barking, sniffing, lovable, protective, loud. For trainable.
Oh, these markers are not
There we go.
Somebody's in charge of markers.
Markers. There we go. Nice. All right. Face licking. Okay. Face licking. Hunter. Ah.
And gatherer.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna pause here for a minute, right? So let's put the last one up there. We're gonna pause here for a minute, okay? I know we have, again, as we started out with, these are all the attributes, right, on either side, what we think is a dog, yes? Okay, so it's loyal, housebroken, furry, companion, guard, 4 legs. That could be a cat, I don't know. You know, wet nose, a barker, loud, hungry, hunter, gatherers. What is that? Slipper stealer. Oh, all right. Trainable, face licking, destructive. Yeah, I see that one. Hairy, lovable, protective, barking, sniffing, and color. All right. Thank you. So we're going to thank you, Chief Captain. Give him a round of applause. Okay. Oh, that's all right. We're going to use this later, though. We're going to use this later, right? We're going to use this later. We talk about it. Okay. So in terms of, artificial intelligence, we talk about, again, using it or it's really teaching, our computers how to do things that we do as humans, right? And what makes AI particularly exciting, right, is like a student, right, it keeps learning as we go on, okay? Like any of us, we keep learning as we move on, okay? So just to kind of recap, right, and talk about that a little bit, right, it allows us to increase our capabilities of what we have as computers today, right? It learns through examples, and we're going to use that in a little bit later, right? It allows us to make decisions through predictions, right? It's embedded in our daily life. How many of us interacted with some kind of artificial intelligence today and not any of the GPTs? Okay, so not ChatGPT or Claude or any of those things, right? How many of us have Google in our cars? We use navigation today. Yeah. How many of us have Alexa and Siri? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was actually, at home getting ready this morning, and I said, I have Alexa. I said, Alexa, make me some breakfast. And she was very stubborn. Yeah, I know, Yeah, that's it. I think so. I'm still waiting. For Alexa to kind of make me some breakfast. That may happen soon, though. I'll tell you. Okay, that may happen soon. So we're talking about this, technology, and this brings into play continuous, evolving, right? Continuous evolving, and it allows us to continually or tackle complex challenges. Okay. All right. In terms of a timeline, right, and this slide deck will be available to you later. Okay. In the video, it'll be available to you. And on request, I'll make it available to you after if you would like it, right? If you'd like. So in terms of just giving you a little bit of a timeline, right? 1956, right? That was when we would probably say the birth of artificial intelligence. And, if you think about it, that's a long time ago. I wasn't even born in 1956. I don't even think my mom was born in 1956. It was a long time ago, right? But as we look over time, we're going to see continuous evolving of this technology, okay? And it builds on each other as we go, right? It took us about 10 years, right, until we have, natural language processing. We saw that in 1956, right? Another 14 years in between that to 1980, where we start to see some kind of applications, and this is where we're talking about here, right? And then fast forward another 14 or 16 years, right? And we have that kind of, everybody heard about Deep Blue and that chess competition, okay? So we see that happen, and that's kind of, again, part of, that evolution of artificial intelligence. Fast forward to a few years ago, right? Generative AI burst on the scene, right? And we all start to use it. So let's kind of look at what's under the hood, right? Think of this slide here as, and I apologize if it's hard to see. I'll try to go through each one and talk about it a little bit. But the tools we're using today, right? Imagine this is you're standing in front of your AI tool, and now you lift the hood up, you're going to see what's under it, right? What makes it up. So I'll kind of go through it. So at the foundation here, we have machine learning. This is really at the base, okay? And think of machine learning as that bedrock that supports the entire structure, okay? This is where, again, it allows a model or allows a model, right, to recognize patterns, make predictions, and then, as we said, continuously improve based on the data that we feed it. On top of that, we have this guy called deep learning. Okay, now deep learning uses some of machine learning, right? And this is where, again, it mimics the structure of the human brain. So now we're starting to get into some kind of intelligence, right? No longer is it, structured, a little bit of programming here and there, right? Next, we're looking at what we talked about, natural language processing, okay? Again, this is where AI now begins to understand human language, okay? Code behind it now starts to understand human language. On top of that, and you can see again, where I'm going with this is one thing builds on the other, on the other, on the other. Computer vision, right? This allows the computer, right, and allows the machines to interpret and understand visual information from the world. And what I would probably say the biggest thing, and this is just my opinion, right? My opinion is the biggest piece of it to me is that cognitive computing portion of it, right? And again, this layer, right, simulates human-like reasoning and decision-making processes, right? So it's not about just recognizing patterns, right, but about analyzing large sets of data, such as what we've placed on the board over there, right? Analyzing large sets of data, right, to provide insights and make complex decisions. And then at the very top are the tools and things we use today, right? Generative AI. And this is that thing that kind of exploded a few years ago, right? And we're using some of those tools. Now, I'm going to pause there. And if there's anything I'm saying, and you want me to go over it, feel free, just raise your hand and say, hey, Phil, can you recap that for me? I'll be happy to do it, okay?
We have a question. Hold on, I'm going to bring you the microphone.
I guess I'd be interested to know what machine learning is a little more. Like, is that like what is the computer doing when we're talking about machine learning? Like, what is the structure that's allowing it to collect data without being programmed explicitly?
Great question, right? Thanks for asking it. So let me kind of back up a little bit and think of every single device that you use, any of your tools that you're using today, there's code, right? So even in machine language, there is code. It's really just how it is actually coded. That's what it is. So all pieces of this triangle right here, we're seeing here, there's code behind it, okay? There's code behind it, and there's some kind of structure to it, but it's how that is put together. That's what I meant, okay? So yes, you'll have code for machine learning, you'll have code for deep learning, but deep learning uses machine learning, the code from machine learning, and builds on top of it, and builds on top, and builds on top. So yeah, ultimately it does come down to coding. And we're gonna get to that in a little bit when we talk about the ethical pieces of it, right? But yes, it comes down to coding. And let me kind of touch on that a little bit. Imagine if you coded it incorrectly, right? What happens at the top here? Okay. Great question, though. I like it. All right. So, just again, recap here, right? We talk about rules-based, so we're talking about coding here, right? We talked about the expert systems, right? Machine learning, and I should have placed my text there, but computer vision, reinforcement learning, we have deep learning, and then ultimately AI. So for some of us visual learners, what does this look like, right? So I've just talked about a whole bunch of different things. right? And we say, okay, what does this look like? So in a more simplistic view of it, right, for me, this top row here just tells me what it is, right? It sits on some kind of data, right? Sits on something, right? And then we do something to it, add some logic, some kind of, intelligence to it. And at the end, we get some kind of value. Yes? Are you still with me? Okay, all right. A little bit more granular, we can see it again, the data broken down into the data itself. We're talking about the quality of the data. We'll touch on that in a little bit. We add some kind of science behind it, Imagine this as that big old cauldron and you're stirring that up, right? And at the end, now you have your value, whether it's implementing, deploying, your integration, and so forth. With artificial intelligence, and as with anything, there are going to be some constraints, right? That we're going to have some constraints, right? For example, we talk about the source of your data and the availability of it, the quality of it as well, right? Legal and privacy issues, right? And then we talk about the ethical and transparency portions of it. All right, so how do we exploit this? Okay, how do we exploit, artificial intelligence, right? We've had these building blocks, right? We put it together and say, okay, great, all of this is fine, it's great, we have these pieces of it. Now let's start thinking about how we're going to use this, right? First off is having that understanding of what artificial intelligence is, right? And I'm going to try and break this down a little bit in the sense of, again, my view is you can't truly exploit something without knowing what it is, okay? Without really knowing what it is, right? I drive my car to work every single day, but if you asked me to do a donut with my car, I couldn't do it. But if I really knew, the ins and outs of my car, right? How hard to press the gas pedal, how much gas, what I mean? I probably could, right? So it starts with that understanding of, what AI is, right? Again, I have here, think of this as that step as learning, think of this step as learning the language of AI to communicate effectively with both technology and the people who are going to be using it, your stakeholders. Next is our data strategy, right? What was our data strategy this morning, earlier? Did we have a data strategy about our dogs? Yes? We got a little bit, right? Okay, a little bit of the data strategy. But you need to have some kind of strategy around your data that's going to be the source of it. Next, you're looking at identifying. Next, you're looking at your applications. Okay, so once you've understood what AI is, right? You're gonna have your data strategy. You're gonna look for specific areas in your business where, right, it can be used. Okay, where is it going to get you value, right? Typically, that's your internal review. And now you start looking at what is the pain points in your organization and can AI help you with that? Can AI enhance that portion of it? Next, we're going to use that thing that was at the top of our pyramid, which is generative AI. Okay, and we're going to utilize generative AI, the tools, right, to automate and create any kind of content or product ideas, right, or again, personalize any kind of customer interactions, right? Now, again, this is just really exploiting it for your business. I'll give you an example of one interaction I had a couple of months ago, right, with AI, right? So I called up, and this is an enterprise. Rented my car, right? I'm in the airport, and getting ready to go to the counter, look on it. Well, I think I was in Fort Lauderdale, but the car where I was to pick the car up was, I think it was Tennessee. Okay, yeah, I think it was Tennessee. So I'm calling Enterprise, and I said, well, okay, the lady, nice lady, sound very nice, asked me, my rental car number. I gave her the number, and starting to go through it, and it really felt real. Okay, it felt real. And as I'm going through it, I realized she starts to ask me the questions again. Says, hi, Mr. Reid. how may I help you today? And so I'm going. So what I started to do was kind of ask a question. It says, well, what's the color of my hair? And it paused and it says, what's your rental number? It sounds real. But they were using that technology. If I was really interacting with it in the way it expected, right, I probably would have gotten good results, right? But again, that's their method of exploiting it, using it, okay? Now, the last piece of it, we'll talk about ethical considerations, okay? Yes?
Hold on, I'll bring you the microphone.
I've never heard a definition of generative AI, but I guess what I'm assuming it means is that it generates new intelligence based on what has gone on prior to that.
Yes and no, right? Generative AI, and I'm gonna catch it in this next slide where I have it talk about generative AI as a game changer, but thanks for asking the question, right? And let me just kind of skip it. Generative AI really is, and simply put is, it's just gonna create something new, right? You'll give it some information because of how it was trained, right? And how it was programmed, right? It will now, quote unquote, think and give you something new. So if we were, let me give you an example. If we trained our model on this data here, right, our generative AI model on this data, and we ask it, are all dogs loud? What will it tell us?
Yes.
Yeah, it'll probably tell us yes, right? It'll probably tell us yes. You know what I mean? But if we ask it, let's see what kind of question based on this data here, this data we give it. If it says give us a dog, right? It'll probably take some of this information, right? Because we've trained it on this, right? And mark you this is a limited subset and give us some part of this, these attributes. Maybe it'll say it has 4 legs, a wet nose, it's a barker, it's hungry, it's a hunter, it's a gatherer. Yes? Okay. All right, so generative AI, right? Now this is that thing that, is really, really popular today, and there are many flavors, many forms of generative AI. The most popular one we use today is that ChatGPT, right? That's the most popular one we use. Others, for example, Claude, DALL-E, or others that are used. However, what I want us to think about is, the problem, right, prior to generative AI, and why it's a game changer, right? And a problem we're faced with is, we're looking at whether it's, customer insights, whether it's market trends, or any kind of scientific research we're doing, right? We're trying to make sense of some kind of complex data, right? Which is sometimes often overwhelming, okay? And time consuming. And typically, right, we need to make these decisions very quickly, okay? So I want you to think about, probably back in the day where you need to crunch, or make some, financial decisions on some large blocks of data. You might need more than one person to do it. You might need more than one computer to do it, okay? Back in the day, generative AI, changes the game there, okay? So models like ChatGPT and DALL-E will allow us to take that complex data, right, transform it into something easily to understand, right? So again, most of us, hopefully, some of us have been, exploiting it using things like ChatGPT. And so you can grab your data, something that would take you, months to do, drop it inside of the, generative AI tool and say, okay, I would like you to take this data and produce me a spreadsheet with graphs that shows me a trend. And within a couple of seconds, poof, it happens. Yep.
I have a question.
Yes.
But a lot of information is behind a paywall. In other words, you need a subscription to databases and that sort of thing, like the New England Journal of Medicine. Those are behind paywalls. So generative AI cannot get to that data. Is that correct?
That is correct. And we'll talk about the sources of data. And what Jenny's talking to there is, how does it get its data, right? Right now in our model, how do we get our data today in our model? Well, I'm talking
People.
about our data that we've placed on the wall right there, right?
We just use people.
Yeah, we use people and we put it there. Yeah, we use people and we put it there. So again, I want you to think about, again, the sources of the data and where it comes from, which is what feeds your results, okay? And we'll touch on that again in a few slides, Jenny. But again, great question, and thank you for asking it. So generative AI, right? It's going to bridge that gap between complex data and practical understanding, right? So here's how we define it. And you asked about what it is, right? And how we define it, right? And what can we do with it? Well, the difference is it will create something new for us, right? For example, I'm not a poet, but if I say, give it my name and say, write me a poem based on my name, okay? It will generate something new, right? Based on what we have fed it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be as bold to, let's go do it. Who's up for it?
Yes.
We're up for it?
Yes.
Okay, let's go write a little poem about your presenter here, right? And put it in Spanish. Well, I don't know about the Spanish part, Curtis, but we will use this. So give me some, and I'll have you guys do it. I will not interfere. And let me see if I can drag it over here. Yep, here we go. So I'm going to use ChatGPT. Okay, and let's put in some things. We're gonna ask it to create a poem. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You tell me. Yes. Based on what you see, you're not your instructor. You're a presenter, right? What else? We're gonna say attributes. What else?
Knowledgeable. Nope, go ahead. I'll repeat it for you. Intelligent.
You know what? You guys making me feel too good. Woo! I know. What's going on? Intelligent, and I can barely see what I'm writing up there. So if I have, typos, I apologize. Okay. What else? We use soccer.
Soccer.
Okay. Coach.
Teacher.
Teacher. Ooh, I
Dapper.
like what? Oh my goodness. You know what, man? I should just stop right here. All right. Okay, we will stop right there though, right? Well dressed. And you know what? I'm gonna add something to it, and I'm gonna say, with a Shakespeare scene. Do we have any English majors in here?
Yeah.
Oh, ooh, I'm gonna put in with a Shakespeare theme. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's see what it gives us.
Oh, to Philip.
Oh, all right. Ode to Phillips. The scholar. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna save this and put it on my wall. All right. So ode to Philip. Hark, gather round, all ye curious mind. Lend thine ear to the tales of one refined. Behold the man articulate and wise, intellect sharp where knowledge lies. I will stop right there. I will stop right there. I will tell you this though. It is. I know. I will keep it. I will keep it really close to me. Okay, let's move this away from here. But here's our example, really, of creating something new, right? Based on, I don't know how ChatGPT was trained. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it's based on how that model was trained, based on that data that it was supplied. That's underneath it. Yes.
Oh, let me bring you the microphone so we can.
Oh, it corrected my spelling.
Oh,
Yes.
it corrected. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because you had soccer spelled SOVCER, and it picked it up and I didn't read far enough down, but I saw soccer as one of the words in there.
Yes. 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 Go ahead.
I'm hearing that there's something new, and there is a poem that's been created, but really it's all based on data you gave it. So it's not new, it's just automated by you.
Well, You know, it's, well, if you
You're
think about
the
it,
thing that makes it new.
in the grand scheme of things, right? You know, things we create are things we're influenced by, right? And so that's what we're seeing there. You know, I mean, I would probably argue that yes, it is new because it is a new poem. No one has written it before.
Okay.
So it is new. And it gave me that capability of, if my English faculty asked me to write a poem in the Shakespeare theme, you know, I'd probably lean towards, you know, a GPT to teach me how to do that. But it is something new. So we've seen that, you know, demonstrated here with that. All right. Reid, I like that. Yes. Yes. And you know, again, when we talk about, you know, lifting up that, if you think about it as a car, you lift up what's under the hood, right? Yes, you have all those little building blocks we had in that pyramid, but then you have the infrastructure behind it, right? The infrastructure behind it. Okay. All right. All right, so we talk about generative AI and the various tools here, right? Again, content creation, you know, data augmentation. I've used data augmentation quite a bit in some of my, you know, programs, right? For example, my background is in, you know, computer information systems and business. And, you know, from time to time, if I'm writing a program and I need large amounts of data, right, I may go to, you know, generative AI and say, okay, I need you to create this database. Here are the attributes. Here's the type of data I want inside of it. Here is the structure of the data. And it will go ahead and create that data for me. I don't have to, you know, go through, you know, a whole bunch of steps and try to create it myself. Yes.
Hold on, I'll bring you the microphone.
One of the things when you ask it to collect the data, we've seen where some of the chat GPTs come up with their own, they create their own, and it's not real. So how do you make sure the data you receive is legitimate?
Okay. So what you're talking about there is what we call hallucinations. Okay. And we'll touch on that as well, because again, your hallucination, right, will come as a result of how your model is also trained, right? You know, how your model is programmed or trained. Okay. For example, well, we'll get to another example later on. I have some examples later on in there, but that's exactly what it is. Now, when you think about hallucinations, let me see if I can, you know, put this in a way we all understand. You know, from time to time, you know, we may say things that are just not true. Okay. Even though for us, it's more deliberate, right? You know, it's more deliberate. On the generative AI side, it isn't, right? It just makes a mistake. Okay, makes a mistake based on what, you know, how it was programmed and the data that's underlined underneath it.
They just create, there are times they just create their own. It's not true. What do you put in to make sure that you're going to receive legitimate data?
Awesome. I have a slide that's going to speak to responsible use of AI and how we build it, how we build our models. Okay. All right. So let's talk about applications across industries, and I'll you know, hit on this a little bit quickly. So for example, again, we talk about in healthcare, finance, retail, manufacturing, right? Healthcare, you know, a use case would be diagnostic AI, right? Benefits, improve patient outcomes. And one example you hear, IBM Watson Health. Okay, and that's, again, that will revolutionize, you know, the healthcare industry. And we keep our eyes on that as well. The other thing that's really big with artificial intelligence is this thing called bias, okay? And I'll try to frame it this way, and I'll give you a definition I have written here, that bias in AI refers to that systematic or to the systematic errors that consistently skew results in a particular direction, okay? Consistently skew results in a particular direction, right? So for example here, and we have two types of bias in AI. When you talk about biases in AI, you have data bias and algorithmic you know, bias, okay? So as we're looking on in here, let's just kind of choose, we go back to the impact or look at the definition of the bias, systematic error, the examples. One is the algorithmic discrimination, right? Causes, historical use, data uses, the effect, right? Inequity of your outcomes, right? And then to fix that, right? Again, training your data properly, right? And then how is it important you have fairer and more reliable AI systems that you can, and I will put quote unquote, trust, okay? Systems that you can trust. Now, again, you have to really be careful when you think about these AI systems and you're using them, really start to think about how that model was trained, where it is, where you got it, right? How you accessed it, okay? All right, so we're going to implement strategies for implementing successful AI, okay? Relatively simple. Number one, just like with any kind of strategy you're trying to implement in any organization, first off, assess your needs, right? Identify your specific areas where AI will make that efficiency. Quite often we're using AI and we're saying, well, then, oh yeah, I'm just going to throw it at every single thing, okay? No, be strategic, be specific about what you're going to do. What I would probably say is the most important piece is monitor how it's used, okay? Monitor its use, right? And then we talk about deploying it, across your organization, okay? So we've talked about the data behind it. We talked about, what drives it. And managing that data, right? And when you think about data, now you start to think about the privacy issues, okay? Not to kind of scare you a little bit, but what I will say is, when you're using any one of these models that you have out there online, right? Be careful of the data that you feed it, okay? Be careful of the data that you feed it, okay? Which is why in some organizations, right, the AI tools that are used are actually vetted and, thoroughly vetted by, their departments, so they know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, right? So be careful what you give up in terms of your data, right? So first step, right, assess, right, your current environment, okay? Once you've assessed it, right, start to look at your data usage, right? Pinpoint any kind of privacy risks that you will encounter, right, when you start to use it. Look at how you're going to mitigate some of those issues, right? Those privacy issues, whether it's by policy, right, or education, right? Educate your stakeholders. The more they talk about it, the more you learn about it, right? The better you can use it or exploit it. Here we have, I'm talking about monitoring and again, continuously review, right, your operations, right, and your privacy compliance. And then engage, talk about it, communicate with your organization with regards to it.
We have a question.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I'm just curious about privacy. I've been using ChatGPT quite a bit.
Yes.
I noticed there's an area where I can go in and actually delete my data. At least it tells me I'm deleting it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've tried other sites, which I'm not as familiar with. I'm trying to something with a P or Po or Procast. Yeah. And the Google site, but I can't find anywhere where it allows me to delete what I just put in. So I was just trying to get, I'm trying to figure out which one should I use, or can I use more than one site and feel comfortable on the privacy side? And because I like to see the different outcomes from what I put in.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit confusing. There's so many of them now.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, no, there is a ton, and you will continue to see some of these tools, a lot of these tools, come out. What my advice to that would be is, as you say with ChatGPT, they're a little bit more responsible about your privacy and about your data. Just be aware. Just be aware. right? And then, again, each tool serves a different purpose. So as you're using it, think about how you're going to use it, right? If there's one that, the data you're okay with giving that data up because you want it to perform a task that, you need to do right away and very quickly, the data is not sensitive enough, why not, right? But always be aware, always be careful of how you give that data up or where you give it.
Okay, thank you. Just one follow-up
Yes,
question.
yes.
Is there somewhere I can go to look at all the potential sites and perhaps what they're best used for in one place? Like, for example, I've been trying to find sites that may draw something for me or create an image. I can't figure that one out. So there's just so many. I don't know where to go to figure out which is best.
One comment is ask ChatGPT. And as a matter of fact, ChatGPT, we may laugh at it, but ChatGPT now, the latest model that they have can search the internet, and here's where some of these are going. And you can actually ask it. It says, go search the internet. I want to do this. Search the internet for a generative AI tool that will allow me to do this. And now, in terms of that you may have to use the paid version of ChatGPT to get some of these additional features, right? But again, yes, I don't think there will be ever one place or like a one-stop shop that you'll go to and it'll give you list everything. And
There is a website called there'sanaIforthat.com,
here we go.
and it has a bunch of AI tools categorized for you there.
I like it. Did everybody get that? So if you're looking for a tool, you're not sure where to find it, there is an AI for that.com. There we go. All right, so challenges in adopting it, right? So we've looked at it. We said we want to use AI. We understand how it is built, how it is created. We understand, well, where are we going to use it, okay? The next thing is, okay, what challenges are we going to face with it? And as we've said before, one of the biggest ones is, your data, okay? Poor data quality leads to inaccurate AI predictions and outputs. So if you take away anything from, this lecture today, this one would be it, right? Be aware of your data quality, be aware of what is underneath your AI model or your AI tool. Your skill gap, right? Again, AI is relatively new. And so again, we'll be looking at, who's able to use it, right? Lack of skilled workforce hinders effective implementation, okay? Regulatory concerns, this is a big one, okay? This is a big one, all right? There's talk out there as, should it be regulated? Yep, should it be, okay? Cost is another barrier. And then we talk about those ethical considerations or ethical concerns. So let's dive into that a little bit, right? The ethical considerations or ethical concerns, okay? Number one on my list, and this is just my view of what this is that bias and fairness that can present itself. So it's that bias and fairness that can present itself inside our model. Privacy, right? How much information are you willing to give up, okay? Transparency about your model, okay? Transparency, again, very, very crucial in building trust with your model, okay? For AI to be trusted, especially in high-stake fields, right? For example, like healthcare, criminal justice, okay? In those areas, I firmly believe that users need to understand how those decisions are made. How those decisions are made. So you're looking on, and this may happen. I'm not going to predict it. I'm not going to say this may happen. But yes, you may now have an artificial intelligence advocate who is your lawyer. Lovely. Or your artificial intelligence judge who is going to rule on a case for you. And I see some heads going, no, 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 we don't want that, right? Where is this going? Yeah. The scary part of it is AI for surveillance, right? A little bit scary. But, again, as we think about these things, right? Think about our human nature and, our need for things to be quick, fast. We want it now. We want it right away. And, or need to find that easiest path, which is why, again, these things must be considered when you're thinking about artificial intelligence, when you're trying to exploit it, right? Now, again, on the ethical side of things, that's that kind of gray area, right? But again, pay specific attention to how we implement it and think of these areas. All right, in terms of, I kind of use this slide here to talk about it in terms of a SWOT analysis and then looking at AI, right? And I'm just going to talk to two of them, the strengths of it, right? Again, significantly enhance your decision making, okay? Think about, those companies that, are trying to innovate and trying to get their product to market very quickly, right? If their competitors are using that, they're going to have to use artificial. They're going to have to jump on that and get to market quicker, okay? Think of those small businesses, right? Let's give you an example of a small business that, needs to get online presence, but they don't have enough money to have a designer, right? Or a content creator. This is where AI come in, and they can use it to exploit it, right? One of the weaknesses, okay, we talk about the bias, and the bias based on the data that you give it or the algorithms or how you have programmed it, okay? So I'm going to ask a question, okay? If we were to look at these without knowing what a dog is, which one of these models would tell us that it's a dog? We've trained our model on this data. What's that? Don't think either one, right? So we probably would have some issues with that model, okay? However, the good news is we can learn from it, right? And as we continue to use this and then we continue to feed it more information about a dog, right? It becomes a little bit, as we say, a little bit smarter. You can make those decisions a little bit better. Yes? Yes.
Hold on a second.
There you go.
So as you're feeding that information, the AI might eliminate some of the former that is not as quality information? Is that a possibility? I'm just asking because I don't know.
No, I wouldn't say it would eliminate it, right? But the decision of how it decides what a dog is and what a dog isn't, it's based on the information you've given it, right? And the rules around it, right? So if we're looking on it here, do we know that based on this data, is there anything in that data across there that differentiates a dog from a cat? Barker, yeah, okay. Let's look on this one here. Any information on this one? Barking, okay. Can a cat bark? What does a cat do? Meow, right? Cats growl. Does a cat growl? Yeah, a cat growls. So in our models, yes, in our models here, right, we probably would be able to differentiate a dog from a cat, right? But again, as you go on, right, your model is continually learning, right? Continually learning based on the instructions and the coding that you've given it. Yes.
Hold on. Let me bring you the mic.
That was kind of what I just want to clarify. What I was saying earlier is that we're giving it all this data to produce an outcome. So whatever it comes up with, sure, it's smart for getting us that information, but it's our information. That's what I mean by it's not really new.
Okay, I see what you're saying. It's not, we're training it, correct.
We're the ones training it.
We're the ones training it. We're the ones training it, right? And I want us to go back to the part of it is we train it by the two pieces of it. We talk about when you look at the bias. The algorithmic bias, right, is that program or the zeros and ones that we're telling it, here's how to do something, and then the data that we give it, right? What if again, here's another little piece of it is, what if I actually put inside here meow? We need to think about that, right? So now I just told that a dog can meow as well. And forever it will know that a dog can meow. Yep. But I may also go back and put in it, a dog doesn't meow. So then it also knows, well, dog meows, but you just told me it doesn't meow. So it doesn't meow. So continuous learning is that piece of it that makes it, that special, right? That makes that difference. And just so you know, those are my neighbors, my colleagues across the hallway. That's okay though, that's all right. All right, so let's kind of finish this off with a couple of things, right? And I'll finish off on this slide here. I had a couple more to touch on, but let's finish off with this, right? So how do we innovate through AI, right? And again, number one is, I have here through AI collaboration. Number one is data sharing. And here, again, be very careful with data sharing, right? You're not sharing information that you don't want to give out, right? But again, data sharing allows you to refine your model if you don't have that information readily, yes? Right? Form collaborative teams, right? Again, everyone's not going to know the answer, right? But you create a better model from input from others from different disciplines, okay? Agile development. What I mean by this is don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid to quickly adjust, okay? Don't be afraid to quickly change to react to what you're having. And then finally, your continuous learning. All right, I will stop there, but I'm going to briefly just show you the slides we're going to touch on. Building your AI-driven culture. This is my fictitious company here, right? But here I was just talking about, again, having your organization embrace AI as a tool, right, to use within your organization, okay? Future of AI and employment, right? I would say embrace it. Embrace it, embrace it, embrace it. Exploit it, exploit it, exploit it. But always keep in the back of your mind its limitations, right? And where it gets its information, okay? We may sometimes get comfortable with it and thinking, well, it's always going to be right, okay? Are we as humans always right? No. So how can we expect the machines we create or these things we create to be always right, right? It's not, okay? Global's perspective on AI, right? Again, there's a high adoption rate in terms of our tech industries, okay? Increasing AI integration in healthcare systems, right? And then significant use across financial systems. So everyone is using it. Everyone is using it, again, to become better in their space. All right, so here's my final thoughts on it, as I mentioned before. Understand it. Exploit it using generative AI, use it responsibly, right? And continue to innovate. All right, so here's my questions. We got 6 minutes. Let's discuss it a bit. Any other questions? Yes.
Let me bring you the mic.
I saw on your threats, data breaches, things
Yes.
like that. I did not see sentience. I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. I've seen a lot of movies where AI starts to come after us.
Okay.
So what do you feel about that?
What do I feel about AI? Pretty much you're saying become, more intelligent than us, and thinking, it's a possibility, right? And here's why I'm going to say it's a possibility, right? And again, this is just my humble opinion, right? I'm going to use a simple tool as the railroad. Okay. If you think way back in history, everybody was riding horses. You had the Pony Express, and if somebody were to tell somebody back then, you're going to be able to travel across metal rails across the country, what did they probably tell you? They'd probably tell you you're crazy. Let's fast forward a few more years. And if you said, you know what, in 3 minutes, I could warm up my food instead of going outside and using flint to create, fire and cook my food, or I can do it in my microwave, somebody would say what? You're crazy, right? Somebody would say crazy. 6 or 7 years ago, or maybe, 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, if you said, you know what, man, I'm going to use a tool online to create a poem about a speaker, right, using Shakespeare themes. What would they tell you? They'd tell you crazy, right? So I don't think it's impossible, right? I do not think it's impossible. However, what I will say is, as we look on this, we talk about responsible use of AI, right? And how, as we continue to develop these things and, you know, technology continues to increase, it needs those, for lack of a better term, guardrails, right? It needs those restrictions around it.
I have one question back here.
Yes.
How would you say we as just like people approach the problem of like the illegal use of AI? So like when it comes, like when I think of it, I think of like a deep fake in like a court of law or something that's against you, and the only proof of you doing it is this video that's been made up. You know, how do you go about that?
Let me ask it in a different way. Is it illegal to use AI? You talk about illegal use of AI. First off, we're going to look at that first, right? Right? Can't be illegal, right? But it's how we use it, right? It's the things we use it to do, okay? Things we use it to do. Yeah, obviously it's wrong, right? Obviously it's wrong. And again, it comes back to, you know, those ethical considerations, okay? Those persons creating the tools, those companies creating the tools. We're not always ethical as humans, right? So is it wrong? You know, yeah. Should there be some kind of, and again, guys, this is just my opinion, right? I'm not speaking for everybody else. Should there be some kind of, you know, requirement for that? And there's been talk of that. You've seen that with, as a matter of fact, with Instagram, right? Instagram now allows you to mark your photos as generated by AI, right? And that's kind of responsible use, right? So creators of these tools, I think, needs to kind of start looking at how the ethical use of it, okay?
Well, this is on the same realm as the last question. I mean, you're talking about how we're going to use it in our own businesses, let's say, and how we should set it all up. But we all know that there are just as many people that are trying to use it for nefarious purposes. And I mean, there's corporations, well-known corporations, that survive based on selling personal information.
Mm-hmm.
And the more of that they can get, the better off they are. And I'm not sure how laws are even going to protect us against that. You can have all the laws in the world, but it's not going to make any difference if somebody wants to use it for a bad purpose. And I think that's what concerns everybody.
I wholeheartedly agree, right? Just with anything that we use, and, you know, as technologists, right, when we create technology, we try to think of it as not good or bad, right? We try to think of the tech as not good or bad, but it's us as people who use it in that way. For example, if I had a stick in my hand, is a stick good or bad? No. But if I went over and hit Curtis with it, right? You know, right? The persons that use it. So it's really how we use it, right? We talk about those deep fakes, right? You know, yes, you can go create that, but it's that person who went and deliberately created that, you know, to fool somebody or to create that thing. You know, going back to, you know, as I said, you know, we have to be careful of the models and the biases and stuff like that. You know, again, those persons who want to do damage, yes, they can go and change your model, right? And you know, you get, you know, bad results. So, yeah, again, while that, you know, we kind of look on those bad side of things and the negative things we can do with AI, it has tremendous potential, right? Tremendous potential. Yes.
What's one positive thing that you do with AI, just for your teaching or business, or what's one tool you could maybe share with us, if you don't mind?
No. You know, well, one positive thing is today I was able to use it to write a poem that made me feel a little bit better about how I'm dressing today, right? No, you know, I use quite a few different models, right? And you know what? I'll give you an example. I was gonna, if I have time, yes, I'm 1 minute over, but if you'll allow me. So one of the things I teach is database security, okay? And, can everybody see this? So here's an example of two models that I use, right? I use Claude and I use ChatGPT. And so I want to create this thing. I want to create, a server, but I want to intentionally make that server vulnerable, okay? I want to create code that will create that model and make that server vulnerable. So I go to ChatGPT and I say, give me a script that will intentionally make this server vulnerable. And this is what it gives me. It gives me what I want. Okay, great. I did the same thing with Claude. And what did Claude tells me? No. Yep. I asked the very same thing. I want to intentionally create this thing. Now, again, this is the difference between the two models, right? One model has this piece in there. The other one doesn't, right? I don't look on it as good or bad, but I use multiple tools, right, to kind of get where I'm going. Okay.
Please help me by thanking Philip for his engaging lecture today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.